we win the election, but we don't get to be president.
Yeah.
Because this has happened twice now. How do we fix that?
Well, I'm in the process now writing an article that says there's a simple solution to it. We have to just abolish the Electoral College. It's not...
So mob rule then. Sure, let's go with that, Fast and Spurious. Let's leave the fate of human civilization to the 20 million titwanks who find the Big Bang Theory watchable. That won't end in nuclear fucking fire. Of course the Democrats would have an issue with the only college on the North American continent that isn't churning out their propaganda in perpetuity. Look, the Founding Fathers are often depicted as somehow prescient in their desire to head off potential hazards, such as the one the Electoral College is intended to avoid. If the population at large reside in major metropolitan areas, so the logic goes, then a prospective candidate need only cater to the vacuous whims of said metropoli and reap a righteous electoral ream job thereby. Visionary, pronounced staunch pro-constitutionalists, but I don't know, they're generally correct in that assessment. The founders did indeed unwittingly anticipate the very malady that has rendered our postmodern republic such an ineffectual fucking hambeast to begin with. The problem? They actually did so after the fucking fact. The Electoral College was less an anticipation of than a response to what early electoral endeavors were already showing would be a lopsided affair hopelessly slanted in favor of unctuous urbanites while thumbing its lead-powdered nose at agriculture and industry all the while. It's not an anticipatory measure, it was a rebuttal. The fourth president of the United States, and widely acknowledged as the father of the Constitution, James Madison, argued in his Federalist Papers against, quote, an interested and overbearing majority beholden to what he called the mischiefs of faction. A faction defined in his eyes as a number of citizens, whether amounting to a majority or minority of the whole, who are united and actuated by the same common impulse of passion or of interest adverse to the rights of other citizens. In short, there's a world outside of New York and LA, Jagoff. Try dismounting your high horse and fucking visiting it on occasion. But if 70% of the electorate are all congregated in 3 cities, why make the fucking trip? The yawning chasmic disparity between the electoral and popular vote we witnessed on election night doesn't indict the Electoral College, motherfucker. It ratifies it, delineating with bold, broad strokes the jaw-dropping expanse betwixt metropolitan and pastoral interests, and the ever-mounting need to balance the scales in response. And however loud, for example, the amazing atheist wants to shriek about how the Founding Fathers were not infallible, and we need to stop enshrining the Constitution as some infallible document, who on this planet can credibly deny that the problem the Electoral College was fashioned to avoid has, if anything, been exacerbated during the intervening years? Then, as now, the population was predominantly huddled in cloistered urban centers, while on the outskirts a gaggle of Appalachian asshats with nothing to their name but 3 log cabins and a hole to shit in banded together and called themselves Montgomery, Alabama. It's not some iron-fisted attempt to confound public will in some appreciable regard. It's a mere acknowledgement of the fact that industry and agriculture can be as important, if not more, than simply what a fuckload of people who all happen to live in the same township happen to goddamn think, particularly when so many of said citizens are wooed to the aforementioned cesspits by the siren song of free shit. People move to Colorado for a master's in Mary J. They move to Frisco for freebies, and they move to Chicago if they have a fucking death wish. What you're advocating when you propose the abolition of the Electoral College is not popular rule. It's a system whereby a major city would merely need to erect an invisible nanny state biodome whereby its entire citizenry, nourished as they are fucking perpetually by the bubbling bullshit that is socialism stew, who in the interest of keeping said ration will vote exactly one way in fucking perpetuity. Sorta kinda like exactly what the fuck we have in LA, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, in short, any fucking where Democrats have enjoyed 9 uninterrupted decades of imperial rule and who could personally shit in the mouth of every citizen in their municipality and still wake up to a piping hot re-election souffle every 4 fucking years. Bitch, you don't want one fucking thing from democracy. Your sphincter's all aflutter for a glorified one-party dictatorship with a side of nanny-state socialist bullshit. Fuck, if anything, as farmers and factories have dwindled in number, while the quadruple-neck, tri-tittied humanity that is the contemporary American city expands nearly as fast as our belt lines, I would argue if any scale could stand some much-needed balancing, it should be to give the agrarian hobbit folk even more of a voice than they already have. Fuck, I live in Phoenix, not exactly the boonies, the most populous capital city in America by a lot, in fact. Hey, you like that copper wiring in your house? You're welcome. 65% of it comes from us. Meanwhile, we get an electoral airtight with 11 measly votes? Well, gosh, cowpokes, guess I'll rustle up some cattle and my assless chaps between tumbleweed dodgings. But enough about my weekends, let's talk about the inordinate power of media in a society whose popular vote, by its very nature, is invariably slave to populist whims, appallingly few of which stem from anything that might be described as principle. Look, a decade ago today, all of Christendom were staunchly convinced by an abysmally researched Al Gore documentary that as per climate change, the world would be reduced to a chlorofluorocarbon-caked smoldering shitball, and I quote, in the next 10 years. Meaning by January of 2016, and evidently that was his favorite date because he made that prediction a number of other times.
This is Mount Kilimanjaro more than 30 years ago and more recently. And a friend of mine just came back from Kilimanjaro with a picture he took a couple months ago. Another friend, Lonnie Thompson, studies glaciers. Here's Lonnie with a last sliver of one of the once mighty glaciers. Within the decade, there will be no more snows of Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, about that. I know what you're thinking. Who'da thunk taking climatological advice from a bumpkin bullshit artist who argued before Congress that heavy metal albums were a portal to Lucifer's asshole might render suspect scientific hypotheses. Now, ponder that for a beat, folks. Be really painfully honest with yourselves here. How many of you, upon viewing Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth, were wholly and utterly persuaded as to the existence of man-made climate change by that one documentary? There's no judgment here. It was a well-edited flick, and Christ knows the Academy Awards treated it like celluloid panacea, but turn inward, attune to the echo of your own tortured soul, and quietly answer that query for me. Still don't think a purely popular vote might possibly confer a little too much power on centralized media? I mean, fuck, consider for a moment that many individuals, some of whom now have YouTube channels devoted to the promulgation of the man-made global warming theory, had their entire opinion on the subject culled from An Inconvenient Truth, a documentary that predicted the world would end altogether now on January 2016, fucking months ago. This ain't a treatise on global warming. It's a simple acknowledgement of the fact that as increasingly irrelevant as it is, media still moves mountains. A tobacco farmer turned shitty senator, turned shitty vice president, turned oil baron, turned failed presidential candidate with a personality of a shoehorn, burning dickloads of dead dinosaurs, globetrotting in a private jet to champion the cause of renewable energy, armed with nothing more than sappy music, marginally competent editing, and decent theatrical distribution, crafted 2006's answer to reefer madness, and forever changed the viewpoint and voting habits of an entire generation regardless. So wait. Electoral College abolitionists intend to fuse a demonstrably impressionable electorate with exclusive voting authority, a monolithic movie industry that often engages in wholesale propaganda mongering, and a profligate press whose parasitic relationship to Hillary couldn't have been more apparent if they were filming live from her lower intestine. Well, there's a stable combo. While you're at it there, Jimmy Neutron, go ahead and mix an acid, a base, and a fucking paint shaker. You hand over your polling privileges to the drooling droves if you want, Chief. Just don't piss in wine when that neoteric conglomeration of armchair utopians turn out to be the town elders from Footloose. I'm RazörFist. God fucking speed!
Stop all this fighting. Don't fuck it up for me. No, get it out.
There is a 75% chance that the entire North Polar ice cap during some of the summer months could be completely ice-free within the next 5 to 7 years.